Hello, my friends. I am so excited to talk to you today about three of the witchiest and most woo-woo things I do in my business that I would highly encourage you to do in your business for more fun and flow and ease and joy as a leader. And let me tell you something, when you are in your power and having fun as a leader and really clear and calm and confident and speaking from that place of inspired enthusiasm, it grows your business. So this is success on success on success. And I love talking about the woo side of life. I am a very strategically minded person. I'm very rational. I believe in vaccinating our children, for example. But I also am very creative, very artistic, and have come to realize I'm also quite spiritual. I'm not religious, but I do consider myself to be a spiritual person. And what all of this means for me is that I incorporate both sides in my work as a business coach and also in guiding my clients to running their businesses in ways that are easier and more sustainable, where growth happens more organically and naturally and in a way that feels like flow, as opposed to, sort of gutting it out, which I think a lot of us know how to do. You don't become successful professionally, I don't think, unless you have some capacity to work hard and stay focused and get the job done. But at a certain point, that alone burns itself out, and often we burn out and it becomes untenable, unsustainable. It's not a way that we could live our lives long term. And if you want to run your business for years to come, if you want to grow and expand and support a team or a larger team, if you want to take your business to a certain size, you want to reach a certain number of people, you want to give back a certain amount of money, you want to have some level of impact beyond what you currently have, then you need to be able to sustain what you do. And that all comes back to this idea of how do we fuel ourselves internally? How do we stay in the game and stay inspired and stay enthusiastic? And so I am a big believer in marrying the strategic, disciplined, hardworking side of things with the more creative, inflow, spiritual side. Both are really powerful and really valuable, and both will take you so far. And often, if you're watching this, then you're probably the type of person who's maybe woman identifying, who probably has learned to lean very heavily on more rigid structures, being taught what to do, being told what to do, being looking to sort of validated external logic to dictate your decisions, to tell you how to navigate obstacles, to grow the business, to grow yourself, whatever it is, like whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, to reach those goals. You probably default to a very externally oriented, rational way of making decisions and making choices. And this doesn't always work. In fact, a lot of times this fails us because it doesn't incorporate the full power and awareness that we have of how the world works, how we work, how other people work. And of course, if you're working with a coach like me, then I'm someone, or other coaches, we help entrepreneurs and business owners sort of see their own blind spots and navigate around those mental obstacles that are maybe going to lead you to making decisions that won't work for the business or won't work for you. And by the way, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for the business. So you can get that external perspective, and it's hugely valuable. I cannot recommend it enough. I have a coach. I'm a coach because I believe in coaching. Coaching is magic. Coaching is different than consulting, and it's magic. It's really about giving you all the tools and resources that you need, not to be told what to do, but to decide what to do in a way that's going to work for you and ultimately your business, your family, your life, the world, the impact that you're here to make. So that's the deal with coaching, and that's why I take this very dualistic approach, because to me, intuition, the woo side of life, what people call woo-woo, I just think of as intuitive logic. I think of it as a very actually rational way of depending on other kinds of information and other kinds of intelligence. To say that creative intelligence has no value or no place in business development is bonkers. and we all know this. Like, we know this now. This may not have felt true, I don't know, 50 years ago, but I think we all understand that soft skills matter and emotional intelligence is required, and creativity and innovation is what leads differentiation and change and leadership and blah, blah, blah. Like, we're not living in such a dualistic world anymore that we can't be creative in our businesses. However, I still think there's a lot of compartmentalization, and a lot of leaders aren't taught to really lean on their own creative wisdom and internal authority. And so I love witchy and woo-woo stuff as access points for creativity, for kind of diving deep into your own psychology and learning different things about what you're capable of, and what ideas you have, and making decisions in a different way. It's like, just like you would take a personality assessment to see all angles of a problem, or you might hire a consultant or a coach to show you perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise see. Using creative tools to navigate your world differently and see things differently is actually a very intelligent, rational thing to do to help you get a 360 view of what's going on, to help you make decisions that have enough kind of insight that they're well-rounded and holistic, and therefore most likely to be effective and to work. So I also wanted to share right here that growing up, this is like a sidebar, but still totally relevant. Growing up, I loved to was obsessed with the X-Files. I don't know if you're an X-Files lover too, but if you've ever seen the show, super popular in the 90s, and they had a reboot, which was like the highlight of my 20s, my 30s? I guess I was in my 30s. Anyway, one minor highlight of my life was when they rebooted the X-Files. And the X-Files had these two FBI agents, if you're familiar with the show or not, just recap, that one was this Oxford educated, like, believer in the paranormal, and like a trained serial killer profiler who would like always assume that it was some paranormal thing that was like causing whatever murder had happened in the show. And then he was partnered with someone who's this very rational, scientist, skeptical person. And so the two of them would have this lovely back and forth, and inevitably it was the paranormal thing, but there was a scientific perspective that the true believer had sort of overlooked. And anyway, I think that I love this, and I don't know if it's because I watched the show so much or what, but I think leaning on both of these perspectives really can help you solve problems in more effective ways. And I encourage you to find what works for you in terms of intuitive understanding, creativity, how you access other ways of knowing, and other maybe truths that you know about the world, ways that you can challenge yourself to think differently than just, what would someone else tell me to do? That's what I'm going to do. Not the best way to lead a business or lead your life or be a leader, right? Being told what to do. Okay, so now 3 ways that I love to use witchy and woo-woo stuff in my business for growth, for leadership, for all of it. Happy Halloween season, right? That's when I'm recording this. So the first thing I love, especially if you are a female identifying person, is cyclical living, and specifically moon cycles. Although you can also use menstrual cycles if you're menstruating. If you're not menstruating for any reason, maybe you don't have the parts, maybe you're past that, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You can use the moon as a stand-in for menstrual cycles. And the reason that this sort of cyclical living is so valuable is because, well, I'll explain what I mean by cyclical living, but just to say it's valuable because it aligns with and syncs up with natural rhythms that our bodies are familiar with. So we spend a lot of time, especially if you're like a high-end service provider, if you're like a straight A student type, if you're an intellectual of any variety, you probably spend a lot of time up in your head. And there's nothing wrong with that. Your brain is a very powerful tool, but we have so much wisdom and so much of our life happening from the neck down, as people say. And the truth is, we're animals. I mean, we're animals with big brains, but we're animals. We're walking around in our suits and we're like making business deals and being bosses, but like we're animals. And so for being embodied is like ultimately one of the most powerful things you can do as a human being is get in touch with your body and your body's wisdom, because it's going to guide you to make different decisions than you otherwise would that will be extremely healing or nurturing or nourishing. So often we burn out because we're stretching beyond our physiological capacity or our emotional capacity. And our emotions are often happening in our body. It feels like a mental experience, but it's really like we have emotions in our body. We have physical limits in our bodies. And we also have physical needs in our bodies. Like a lot of us sit all the time, and it's really important to get up and move, right? We don't think about it because we're up here all the time. But if we tuned into our body would say, hey, get out there, go lift some weights, go do some squats, go sit in the sunshine and be an animal for a minute. And all of that stuff is naturally very energizing. So that's my little spiel about embodied leadership and business development. But specifically, cyclical living is a way of hooking up with natural cycles that exist outside of us, meaning like you can look around and see it, and that can provide a sort of built-in template for navigating your life in a way that's connected to nature and brings you back into your body. So I'm talking about moon cycles. I have to show you this. So I have this thing behind me, this painting, and then I also above that have a moon cycle, because I really believe in the power of the moon cycle. Not because you need it, like because you must live by the moon or something, but because it's such a lovely metaphor. It's in the sky most nights, unless it's totally cloudy. In fact, it's in the sky all nights, even if it's cloudy. The moon's always there. Bless you, moon. Anyway, the moon is also historically associated with the feminine archetype. It's associated with receiving, with kind of intuitive mystery and mysticism. A lot of, wisdom traditions honor the moon, much like they honor the sun, but it's a different kind of energy, right? Like the sun energy is really powerful, intense, radiating heat associated more with the masculine. It's sort of that pushing, driving energy. And then the moon is reflective. It's like more basking. It's something that can shine very brightly or can be almost totally gone from the sky. And it like has this nurturing quality to it. So the moon represents the gentler and more subtle instincts and rhythms that our bodies and our planet is guided by. And so the moon itself can be a really cool tool to kind of play with as a metaphor or as an object of wisdom and guidance. And so when I say the moon cycle, what I mean is if you start with the new moon, when it looks like the moon is totally gone from the sky because the earth is blocking the sun's light to the moon, so the moon is not reflecting any light back to us, depending on where you are in the world. New moon it'll get bigger and bigger. It looks like it's getting bigger and bigger every night until it hits the full moon, and that's when the moon is super bright. And then it'll get darker and darker and darker again until it hits the new moon. And so that happens approximately every 28 days, much like a person with a uterus's menstrual cycle, if they have one, is 28 to 30 days-ish. And so there is this waxing and waning, right? You've probably heard that depending on how deep into like moon awareness you are. So a waxing is when the moon looks like it's getting bigger, and waning is when it looks like the moon is getting smaller. It's actually associated with different aspects of a woman's menstrual cycle, in that building up to ovulation and then post ovulation to menstruation. So sort of the like growth and burgeoning of preparedness for a baby, and then assuming there's no baby implanted, then releasing. And that like growing and releasing is actually the sort of cadence and rhythm that you can follow if you're using the moon cycle to guide you. So a lot of people do quarterly planning. A lot of business owners do like quarterly planning, annual planning, and even monthly and sometimes weekly planning. I like annual, quarterly kind of check-ins, and I do my own kind of stuff for that, which I won't get into. But every month, I like to, instead of doing like a monthly plan, I like to check in with the moon and use the moon cycle along with some of these other witchy tools I'm going to share with you in a second to help me set an intention and think about what kind of change I want to intentionally cultivate over the coming month or the coming moon cycle. And the way you can, in very brief, the way you work with this is you pick your intention during the new moon, because that's the time that represents like planting seeds underground because it's all dark. You plant the seed of your intention, and then you allow it to grow. You sort of cultivate it until the full moon, at which point you reflect on your progress, and then you start shedding and releasing. And it's not that you're letting go of the intention, it's that you're letting go of obstacles that get in the way of you living into this intention. There is a lot of nuance here, a lot of fun stuff to explore, but if the concept of moon sort of cyclical living appeals to you, or you want to go deeper into this, I actually host women's circles that I host on the new moon. Not every month, but many months. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the link below. I'll drop a link. You can sign up for the newsletter list, and you will only get emails related to that. You will not be added to my normal business and leadership coaching email list. You'll just hear about when I'm hosting another circle, and you're welcome to attend and join and go deep with us if that appeals to you. The second way I use witchy and woo-woo stuff in my business is through tarot cards. I love tarot and oracle cards. I am a student of literature. I always, from the time I was little, was obsessed with sort of high adventure fantasy stories. I guess it's not high fantasy. Like, I wasn't reading all about aliens. I saved that for the X-Files watching. But like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia, the Golden Compass series, sort of every fairy tale and myth from various nations and cultures. Like, it all just, I loved it. I loved this language of story and archetype. And I love oracle cards and tarot cards for the same reason, because there are so many layers of meaning that you can unpack from each of these cards if you choose to. And it's really fun. I think it's really fun. Our brains are meaning-making machines, and we can use cards to make meaning. It almost doesn't, it literally doesn't matter what cards you pick. You just pick a card. And before you pick a card, you have a question in mind, you ask for guidance on a specific topic, you pick a card, and then you make meaning out of what you see on the card and use that to ask your brain to think differently. I actually did a whole video on how to use oracle cards as a business owner, so I'll link to that in the comments below if you want to go deeper. And if you want my recommendation, I am really at the moment loving this deck called the Light Seers Tarot. And one thing I do love, especially if you're new to oracle cards, or even if you're not, I recommend finding a deck that has some kind of book that will take you through the meanings of different cards, right? Because sometimes we don't know. I was talking about the sun before. Let me just show you what a tarot or oracle card is if you've never seen one before. So here's one I have on my desk. This is the sun. This is very lovely. And you can tell, right? There's a lot happening here. So you could just look at this and kind of free write on it. Like, if you had a question about, I don't know, should I increase my prices? Let's say it's a very strategic question that you want some intuitive woo-woo or witchy guidance on. Should I raise my prices? Should I say yes to that party? Should I whatever? And normally you would look to someone outside of yourself to tell you what to do. Look to yourself to tell you what to do. and you can use this to help you get clear on your decision. So let's say you're asking that question, you pull a card, this is the card you pull. Boop, the Sun. Well, maybe just looking at this, it gives you a feeling that clarifies the answer for you. Or maybe you kind of, it reminds you of something, and then that, whatever that sparks in your subconscious, it gets drawn to your conscious mind, and then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, oh my god, okay, that's right, it reminds me of this thing, and that reminds me of this other thing, and I never considered this in this situation. How does that impact the decision I want to make? Oh, you know what, actually I'd like to do this. It's like, that's the kind of creative thinking our brains can do when we bust it out of the box that we're normally forcing it to fit into. And then even beyond the cards, like the colors and the images and the name and stuff, if you get a deck that has explanations with it, you can read all about what this particular card means, because every card has a meaning beyond what your brain makes it makes up that it means. And in addition to that, then once you read the meanings, you can make all kinds of additional meanings out of that. Super fun, highly recommend. I just think if you're like me, you like stories, you like archetypes, play with oracle cards, play with tarot cards. I'm using the two terms interchangeably. They're not quite interchangeable. I'll just mention, in case you don't know this, that tarot cards are a sort of like a normal 4-suit card deck. There's just a certain number of cards. I'm forgetting how many. Is it 64? Who cares? Certain number of cards in a typical card deck, 4 suits you can expect to see. And in a tarot deck, it's similar in that there are 4 specific types of cards. So in a normal card deck, right, there's hearts, diamonds, swords, and clubs. And in a tarot deck, there are pentacles, wands, swords, and cups. I couldn't remember. So anyway, it's a similar thing. And then there's also something called like the major arcana in the tarot cards, and that's all like specific archetypes. So there's like the high priestess and the hierophant and temperance and the sun, for example. So anyway, you can get very deep into this, and I have a whole video about it if you want to go deeper into applying this specifically for business. So I'll drop that link below. Check it out. This is a great time to be all witchy with your cards. So the last way that I'll share for today, the last thing that I do that I think of as witchy and woo-woo, but also the most practical thing I do, is I tune in to the seat of my power in my body, and I ask it specific questions. I believe firmly that each one of us is born with a seed of divine intelligence in us, that we all have a direct connection to what I consider to be spirit. Maybe you would consider it to be God or universe or source. That's a little bit of hair. But now I'm getting distracted. Look at this. I feel like just like you're born with curly hair, if you're me, we're born with this stuff. It is our interconnectedness to all beings. This is my spiritual belief. If this doesn't resonate for you, you don't have to believe it to connect with your own seat of personal power. But I do believe in my spiritual system and practice, what I have ultimately conceived for myself, because I don't really follow a specific person. I'm very internally oriented when it comes to what I believe is sort of being in right relationship with the world and with other people and with myself and with the planet. But I believe we each have this sort of divine knowing. It's like divine consciousness in a human form. God is kind of this energy all around us, and it's also an internal energy. It's not a person that it's not like a man living in the sky who's going to condemn you to hell. It's a connectedness that we all have. We're all connected to each other. We're all connected to the planet. We're all connected to all living beings, all inanimate objects. the stars, the earth, all of it. We're all connected. And that point of connection, I believe, is also a point of inspiration and intelligence for us to access. That when we access that, what I'm thinking of is like a power portal inside of ourselves. When we access that power portal inside of ourselves and we take direction and guidance from that, that steers us on our truest trajectory for the impact and that we're meant to make in this world, for the potential that we have the capacity to reach in this lifetime. Like that place inside of us is the ultimate truth teller for us. And so I do a lot of work to get in touch with that place inside of myself and use that to make external decisions. So a brief sort of explanation of how to get in touch with this. Maybe enough for you to just hear about it, because however you connect to your power source is going to be your way. But for me, because I'm a very intellectual person, it really helps to get into my body. Maybe it's through going through a walk, maybe it's standing outside, maybe it's doing some yoga, maybe it's doing some more vigorous exercise, or maybe it's just taking some deep breaths. But getting into my whole body and then sitting down or lying down, as the case may be, putting my hands over my heart and over my solar plexus. Those are the two places that I feel my power center the most. I also feel in my throat sometimes, but for now, let's just say solar plexus and heart. And I do some breathing and I drop in and I listen. I really listen to what intelligence comes through for me from those places. I try very hard to keep it out of my head, because often my head is like, here's the answer, blah, 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 and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. No. So I breathe out all the brain talk and I drop in and I listen. Sometimes this happens quickly, sometimes it doesn't happen for days, and the insights and answers come when I'm just walking around or taking a shower, in conversation with friends. That kind of stuff happens a lot with creativity, inspiration, and subconscious awareness. But it's setting the intention and holding space for those answers to come from my center of personal power is one of the most useful, intuitive, magical things that I do for myself in my career and in my business and in my leadership. And it's one that I wish you to try for yourself and your leadership and your business and your career. You will never ever lose that knowing on the inside of who you truly are, what you truly want, and what you are truly capable of. But you do have to listen for it. So maybe this Halloween Eve, sometime in this witchy woo-woo season, you make some space, you get quiet, and you practice listening to that voice of inner knowing that is connected to all things. I wish for you so much fun, so much excitement and enthusiasm and woo and magical witchy spells. I don't know. I hope that you take some of these tools, you really run with them, and you just allow yourself to have some fun in the experience of being a leader. Allow yourself to like make business work for you, right? Like, let's do this in a way where it's you are glad to be here and you are glad to be alive. That's really what all of this is about. So take the thing that feels the most fun and exciting to you, go out and do it. Drop me a comment if you discover something or you have any suggestions I haven't mentioned. There are so many ways to get in touch with your magic, but these are 3 of my favorites that I use all the time. And I hope this was helpful to you. If you want to learn more about working with me as your business coach, or you know that you want to book a call and talk about it, I am available for private coaching. I work one-on-one with clients and I help them create customized ways of moving through the world. And what that means is like strategies for their business, strategies for themselves. We get really clear on your vision. We help you upgrade your mindset. We talk about specific challenges you may be facing, like pricing or structuring or hiring or delegating, or any of the stuff that comes with running a business in a way that feels easier, gives you more spaciousness, and is like true to who you are so that you can, again, sustain this, enjoy this, love your life. I help with all of that stuff. So come to my website. I will drop the link below that you can use to click on my Work With Me page. You can learn more about my coaching process and packages, and you can also sign up to book a consult with me. These are deep dive, hour-long calls where we talk about working together, but we do it in a context of what are your goals? What are your main challenges? And then what strategy and intuitive sort of guidance is landing for me? What do I recommend to help you get where you need to go next? And how could we work together to support you in that? And if working together doesn't feel like a fit, it's no big deal. I'm never going to push you, but book a call. And that's the easiest way to find out if working together will help you get where you want to go. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, week, month, even your year. And I will talk to you next time.